Australia. The world's largest island, the world's 6th largest country. Covering more than 7.5 million square kilometres, it has some of the Earth's most diverse landscapes. So to put it bluntly, there's a whole lot of it where you're not. Meet the Lord family. Mum Leah, Dad Anthony, eldest Aidan, and little Corey. Now these guys, they love the great outdoors and they especially love camping. In fact, Aidan, he's camping right now. And unlike Corey, at least he's not getting away. Now, being relatively new to four-wheel driving, Anthony wrote to me at Camper Trailer Touring magazine to get my advice on the great weekend getaway. Well, I saw that as an excuse to set up our next adventure. And with a hand from a few of my good mates, we've organised a cracker of a trip right on their doorstep. Now the Lord family, they've got no idea what they're in for this weekend. All I've told them, in fact, is to meet me on the side of the road up here in Myrtleford. I'll fill them in a bit when I do meet them, but gee whiz have I got some surprises in store for them, and if they are half as excited as me, well then they're pretty excited. Looks like them up on the side here. G'day, babe. G'day, mate. How are you? Good self. What's your name?
Aidan.
Nice to meet you, Aidan. What's your name? You may remember my good mate Tim from XTRAIL Campers. He's always looking for an excuse to get away, and not only that, he's brought along 3 of his latest 2011 model camper trailers. We've got the Navigator, the Ranger, and the Explorer Extreme. And during the break, we're going to have a more in-depth look at the nuts and bolts of each of these campers. With all the pleasantries out of the way and the XTRAILs all locked and loaded, it's time to let the Lord family know exactly what they're in for. The Victorian High Country. Now, this is my first time four-wheel driving in the Victorian High Country, and over the next few days, we're going to meet some great people, travel some incredible tracks, and all the while taking in the true essence of what Victoria has to offer. I know it goes without saying, but stick around. Now, our trip begins just out of Myrtleford, where we head right up to Lake Cobbler to check out the sights. We then head back down to Sheepyard Flat, where we're going to get a feel for the real high country. We then move on to Pineapple Flat, where we camp out for the night. The following day, we go up, heading straight for the infamous Craig's Hut. We then go up again to a height of around 1,749 metres to the top of Mount Sterling. And then finally, we traverse a ski run down and come out near Merrijig. Now, the obvious first thing to do on a Vic High Country trip is gain some altitude. And as you may have noticed, and only by chance, we're all in, yep, you guessed it, Nissan Patrols. So it's not going to be a problem at all. The Victorian High Country is actually part of the Great Dividing Range, and on a global scale is really not all that high, especially when you compare it to some of the more traditional alpine ranges of Europe or even North America. Mount Kosciuszko being the highest at 2,228 metres, but the Great Dividing Range does have one trait that totally dwarfs the others in comparison. It's much, much older. Some 150 million years older, in fact. It was formed over 300 million years ago in the Carboniferous period when Australia collided with what is now parts of South America and New Zealand. And that means that it's even older than the dinosaurs. The Vic High Country would have once been much higher, but due to erosion and other environmental factors, it's been brought down to the size that it is today. I really can't help feeling that we are travelling in an area that deserves a very healthy dose of respect. It's not until you reach one of the lower clearings that you start to comprehend the vast expanse. Greenish blue peaks in all directions. In the dead of winter, the snow line can stretch way up as far as 50 kilometres west of Canberra in the ACT and can cover an area the size as the entire country of Switzerland. This large cleared area here is in fact a helipad. Now that's a pretty weird bit of kit to find in the high country, but it does serve a very important purpose, and that is to get you out of here if you're ever caught in a bushfire. They come through all too often. Up here you'll get mobile range, you can call the authorities and they will come in and collect you if things turn pear-shaped. Let's hope we don't have to use it, but for now, what a view. Before we go up again, we have to go down. And it's very important when towing that your camper or your trailer has reliable electronic brakes, and you should always test that they're working before making a steep descent. Of course, that's not a problem at all for the XTRAIL campers, which are specifically designed for this type of terrain. The Navigator, Ranger and the Explorer Extreme all have fully independent coil spring trail arm suspension and 10-inch electric brakes. And with the factory fitted 31-inch tyres, a huge amount of clearance. Which means you need to keep checking your rear vision mirror to make sure it's still there. They really do track well over difficult terrain. Now the morning is really starting to creep on into the day and we've still got much to see and do. But as you can imagine, there's scenery everywhere you turn, so it's really hard not to stop on every corner. This is the Dandongadale Falls, and as you can see, it's absolutely massive. In fact, it's said to be the highest falls in all of Victoria, plummeting at various stages 255 metres from the Cobbler Plateau. Which brings us to our next destination, its source, Lake Cobbler. Lake Cobbler, because of its location amongst the mountain peaks, is often in shadow, so it can give off a really eerie feel. But trust me, it's beautiful. It was originally a wetland, but was dammed by loggers in the 1950s and is now a great place to camp beside the bank. It has pit amenities and a permanent shelter in case the weather conditions turn, which is always a possibility at this altitude, but of absolutely no concern for us with the XTRAILs in tow. Magic spot, isn't it? This is Lake Cobbler, right on the fringe of the plant belt, which basically means the environmental extremes that this part of the world encounters causes the trees to start shrinking, getting a lot more further apart. We're going to see that happen more and more as we gain altitude. We're going to get a bit of a move on, starting to get a bit late, and I'm dead keen. Set up camp. For more information, why don't you contact the Parks Victoria Information Centre on 13 19 63, or you can go to their informative website at parkweb.vic.gov.au. And as if I did speak too soon, the conditions do turn. But that's the nature of being in the high country. Although a weather change really can add to the beauty of this region, especially in a ghostly environment such as this. It really is amazing to see, and you appreciate it just that little bit more from the warmth of a four-wheel drive. Coming up after the break, we get back to how it was in the pioneering days of the VIC High Country. But first, we're going to take a closer look at the XTRAIL Navigator featured on this trip.
We found the camper trailer great. It just followed us along on all the tracks. Half the time we didn't even know it was there. On a lot of the technical stuff, it just rose above our expectations. Our family four-wheel drives only had minimal modifications, and it did it with ease. It was just great.
The comfort was great. The kitchen was a highlight for me in the camper, in that you could pull up on the side of the road without a problem, open the back of the trailer, make lunch for the kids and make a cuppa for us really comfortably. It was also like we had at home, so everything that I had at home was there and it was easy to use.
Now, when it comes to touring or four-wheel driving with all that extra water around, you just need to make sure that you drive to the conditions, which means just take it a little easier, especially when braking and cornering. What was once a firm, unpaved road can quickly become a slippery mudslide in only a few hours, and with such a high clay content like these roads, it can sure make driving interesting. We're just heading down that Howcourt track right now. We're heading for Sheepyard Flat. Now, this stretch of road is notoriously slippery after rain. Come across a bit of an unfortunate circumstance whereby a young couple in a two-wheel drive ute slid off the track on an off-camber bank into the side. Now, there's not much we can do to help them out, and I feel a bit bad leaving them here, but it does go to illustrate just how much better a four-wheel drive is. The poor old dog looks a bit bored. This is Fry's hut, located at Sheepyard Flat. It was named after and built by Fred Fry in the 1930s. He was responsible for building a number of the huts along the Howcourt River, and it is said that his life was the inspiration for the character Billy Slim in the novel The Far Country by Neville Shute, whom supposedly stayed for a period of time in this very hut in the late 1940s. Have a look at old Fred Fry's hut in the background there. Now, as far as huts go, it's got a lot of history attached to it, and it's been around for a very long time, but it's got nothing on this bad boy here. I've just paced out the circumference of this tree and I got a figure of 45 feet. Any way you look at it, that's a very big tree and it's been around for a very long time.
Pretend we're just going to go up and meet
Now, for the real reason we're here. You couldn't really get a feel for the high country without trying the traditional mode of transport. And the boys, they've been little gentlemen in the car all day with the promise that they're going to get the first go.
Hey, Corey, 1, 2, 3. Up and over. Wait for that rain. That's right. Use it, rain.
This is Paul and Shelley from VIC High Country Adventures, and they do trail rides throughout the high country. What a job. They must absolutely hate life. Well, I've been given the keys to a four-wheel drive vehicle of a completely different nature. I'm not too sure where you hook up the camper trailer. We'll figure that out later. But I tell you, when you're in the high country, is there any better way to see it? Let's go. For more information, contact VIC High Country Adventures on 03 5777 5510, or you can visit their website at lovics.com.au. With the sun starting to show through, we find some more difficult terrain. It's important when going through undulations such as these to have a very strong drawbar and hitch, such as this one here on the XTRAIL camper, as it is easy to get caught up and at worst have your camper trailer come right off the hitch. But clearly we've got no worries here. Anthony's handling these obstacles like he's done it all before. You know, I'm finding myself in all sorts of terrains around Australia these days. I'm so glad I've got the Cooper STTs on when I'm towing in the big GU. They've proven themselves all over Australia, as I said, in all those types of terrains. For me, I wouldn't have anything else. I can trust that no matter where I'm going to land, and no matter what I'm going to be towing, the STTs, they're going to be there with me. Now, if you'd like some more information on tyre pressures, pick up a free info pack on Cooper tyres. This Cooper tyre info pack is essential for all four-wheel drivers because it contains information on tyre pressures, balancing, speed ratings and much more. Call 1300 266 737 or you can go to the website to get this free info pack right now. What a day. We're finally at camp and it's time to set up the campers and get comfortable. All you need to set up almost all the comforts of home is a relatively flat patch of dirt and you're away. Okie dokie, well that's camp all set up. What an awesome day we've had today. You know, you could say today was my first ever full day of four-wheel driving in the high country, and if you think I liked it, you'd be spot on. Now, this place here is called Pineapple Flats. I got no idea why, I can't see a pineapple anywhere. But what I can see is a great looking little creek down there, and while we've got a little bit of light left, I'm gonna go exploring. Tim tells me that this place, Pineapple Flat, is renowned for its trout fishing, and this guy has all the gear. And funnily enough, he recognised me from the magazine and he's given me a fish, as you do. As it turns out, this is Jeff Lay, a regular in these parts, and he actually represented Australia at the Commonwealth Games in fly fishing. So I guess it really wasn't that big a deal giving me a fish. I reckon he must be sick of them. Now, being the gentleman that I am, I invited him back for a couple of beverages around the campfire to say thanks. Now, I guess I'm obligated to cook it. Well, what a stroke of luck bumping into Jeff down there on the river. You know, I'd love to lay claim to catching this wild-fed brown trout, but I can't. What I can do, however, is cook it up, and that is what I'm going to do right now. Now, it's vitally important to have a quality kitchen in your camper if you want the ease of being able to cook just like you do at home. And as for the XTRAIL kitchen, well, they're as good as they get. With a large triple burner gas stove, its rigid design and plenty of bench space, it makes cooking an absolute breeze. Just don't leave the food unattended. I tell you what folks, the adults have been coming over here, they've been stealing a little bit. The camera crew have been having a go at this. Everyone's been having a go at it, except me. So I say, we stop recording and let's get into this. Thanks to Tim and his chainsaw, the fire is raging and everyone is well fed. Time to settle in and really enjoy the evening.
When are you going to turn right?
And we certainly did. As it turned out, Jeff was a bit of a larrikin and he kept us well entertained late into the evening.
The one time I don't always look at the camera.
How good is this, folks? You know, getting away from the city for me, it's got so many bonuses, but the one that I really enjoy above most others is getting away from all that light pollution, because as a photographer, trying to get nighttime shots in the middle of suburbia, almost impossible. But out here, with nothing else interfering, those stars, well, they look like beacons, they're glowing so brightly. So, to get the ultimate sequence shot, I've set the camera up on this log and I'm going to come back about 15 minutes. We're going to check it and see how we're looking. This could take me a while, but right now, I want to get back to the warmth of that fire. And the results? Well, they're just spectacular. After the break, Mother Nature gives us an absolutely stunning display. But right now, we take a look at the XTRAIL Ranger, also featured on the trip, so don't go anywhere. There's plenty more to come.
The highlight for me would have been the Clare Hills track. It was really challenging. There was some good muddy sections and rocky sections, and the trailer really did well. It tracked along behind us and we were really impressed with it. Even at the end of the day when we got there, everything was intact and where it should have been.
My favourite part of the trip was definitely the trip to Craig's Hut. We had Jessica's theme walking down the aisle for our wedding, and it's my ultimate favourite movie, so seeing Craig's Hut in the flesh was just unbelievable.
Well, what an amazing difference 24 hours in the high country makes, eh? Yesterday when we drove in here, these tracks were dry and dusty. Today, after a huge deluge overnight, we've got mud puddles everywhere, the wheel ruts are filled with water, and the river has come up a couple of inches. So, things could be a bit interesting today, but no one stops for anything here. We've got to pack up the camper trailers and make a move. Tim, mate, that weather looks a bit different. The forecast suggests we could get snow.
Mate, I reckon there's a fair chance we're going to see some today.
I hope so, mate, I hope so. You know, I tell you what, whilst we're well prepared for the snow, the vehicles do need just that little bit more extra care in the way of a fuel additive. Pretty simple stuff, it just lowers the freezing point of diesel down to about -9. And that way, we'll be good to go. With all on board, it's time to head up. And I really do mean up, all the way to Craig's Hut. But first, we need to cross the river, and it's running at full flow. But the XTRAILs are fully sealed, so there's no chance of our gear getting wet. Which is really reassuring, as you don't want to take several hundred kilograms of camper into a river and have to pull out 2 tons of camper once you're done. You just might not make it to the other side. Catch you next time, Jeff. Now this is where the tracks really start to become interesting. It's a great opportunity to give these trailers a bit of a workout. It's not just the suspension that is important when going up lumps like these, it's the build quality. And being a seam welded camper rather than a spot welded one makes a world of difference when it comes to the rough stuff. There's just no chance of a breakage, leaving you with the only concern of where the heck did I leave the eggs? Tim, copy, mate?
Yeah, copy, mate.
Hey, what was that sign all about when we first started this track? Something about Black Diamond Run or something?
Yeah, it was a Black Diamond track. One thing that Parks Victoria are doing around the Victorian High Country now is putting these signs to give people a bit of an idea on the severity of the tracks.
Copy that, so.
How's that trailer handling for you, mate? I mean, I guess you wouldn't ordinarily bother with the trailer up here, but we're having no drama. I'm having no dramas.
No, it's getting through here, no worries at all. Yeah, we'll see how we go for the rest of the trip, but there's a couple of more challenging sections to get before we get to the top of Mount Sterling, so we'll see how we go on that one.
All about gear choice though, isn't it? Just to make it easy on us.
Yeah, look, it's the ideal setup for coming up here this time of year, but yeah, we'll see how we go.
Well, no trip to the high country is complete without visiting Craig's hut. Of course, as we all know, it was made as a prop for the movie, The Man from Snowy River, but it is situated in such a location that it has got one of the best views in Australia. Check this out. How good is that? We were lucky to see the view when we did, because it doesn't take long for the cloud to roll in, and boy, do they look ominous. Time for us to move on. With Tim up the front in the lead, we start to tackle some really steep sections, but he assures me the view from the top is well worthwhile. While Anthony and Carl up the back are handling it like seasoned professionals.
Yes, mate.
Mate, what on earth is this white stuff on the ground here?
Oh, I think they call that snow down here. You might not see much where you come from.
Snow, I've heard about it. I've seen it in books, mate.
Oh, that's bad luck if that's as close as you get to it.
Well, I mean, what I'm looking at here, I've got on my GPS, we're only at 1,500 metres. We're going to nearly 1,800 metres today.
So there's snow on the ground here. I mean, snow works, it gets higher, you get more snow, right?
Generally, that's the science of it, mate. The way it works, the higher you get, generally the more you get.
So there's a pretty good bet I'm going to see more of this stuff as we go on.
Yeah, I think there's a fair chance of that. We'll see a little bit more before we reach the top.
Looking forward to it, mate. Looking forward to it. Can't wait. No doubt about it, Tim's at home in these mountains. Anthony and Leah handling the terrain like true champs. As for the kids, how's this for an education? And finally, we break through to a clearing, and wow, it really is a privilege to be driving up. The view is absolutely spectacular. And to think, the only way to get here is in a four-wheel drive, or as I like to call it, the office. Currently on top of Mount Sterling, it's 0 degrees, but it feels like about -40. We had the first snowfall of the season last night, quite a heavy snowfall too, as you can see by the snow on the ground. And if you look behind me, that cloud rolling in is bringing more snow. It's going to snow for the next 3 days. And if these conditions continue as they are, we're going to see an absolute winter wonderland up here. It's amazing. And I was right. Within an hour, it looked like this. The tracks are covered in snow. As you can see, everything outside is covered in snow. For a bloke that's just come from Perth, where we've had about 3 months over 30 degrees, it's a bit of a shock to the system, but you cannot deny just how utterly beautiful this is. The high country in snow. And once again, I've lucked into it. This is absolutely stunning. Of course, I've not driven in snow yet, so this could be a bit interesting. And interesting was an absolute understatement. Without chains, the track did get just a little slippery. But for Tim, being the experienced mountain man that he is, he didn't even break a sweat.
Here we are heading down Monument Track. And this is a fairly steep track at any time of the day. But here we are doing it today with about 3 or 4 centimetres of snow on it. Now to avoid locking all the brakes up, not only in the car but the trailer as well, I've got the car sitting in first gear low range and just letting it walk down. And I've got a hand control on the brake unit and electric brakes, and I'm just applying brakes to the trailer so everything doesn't slide down, which would be really bad. It's just working very effectively.
Now, as should be the case in these situations, safety comes first. So we contacted National Parks for weather advice, and they suggested we get off the mountain, as the snow has set in and it looks like it's going to be the first big dump of the season. It's time for us to reassess our goals for the day. Coming from WA, Perth, like I do, if I get more than 200 metres above sea level, I start to get excited. My little VMS unit here is telling me I'm currently over 1,500 metres above sea level. Something for me, that is. Conditions as they are at the moment, it's so important that you've got quality navigational equipment out here. These tracks are just a windy labyrinth, and if you get lost, well, temperatures as they are, it really doesn't bear thinking about. Things could get really nasty in a hurry. So having quality navigational equipment, more importantly knowing how to use it on trips such as this, absolutely vital. We've got to take the only real option here, and that is finding a track and traversing down. How good is this? It's snowing! What a way to finish my trip to the high country. I've got snow on the ground, snow in the trees. Tell you what, one thing I'm happy for is the XTRAILs. They kept us dry and warm last night, and I don't think we would have been able to do it without them. Time now to head off down the mountain, but I urge you folks to get up here and check this out for yourself, because this is absolutely amazing. Let's go, Ant! For more information on the VIC High Country, contact the Parks Victoria Information Centre on 13 19 63 or head to their website at parkweb.vic.gov.au. What a great trip. We'll catch you next time. Coming up, we review the final camper on the trip, the XTRAIL Explorer Extreme.
It's a unique kind of holiday. It's great to be able to get out with the kids and for them to learn some life skills that they may not necessarily learn at school. It's also great to be able to get to some remote places.
We had such a great time, we're already planning our next trip. We're going to the Northern Territory.
No, Fraser.
No, Northern Territory.
Fraser.
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 Northern Territory.